Thanks for supporting the animal shelter. We'll be barbecuing chicken and ribs at the fundraiser.
Hello, I'm here with Matt Schwab in London, Ontario. Hi, Matt.
Hey, John.
And I love your shirt, Reject Speciesism. For people who don't know what speciesism means, can you please define that word for us?
Yes, so speciesism is discrimination against others on the basis of species membership alone. So anytime somebody says that the interests of a dog or a pig do not matter because they're just animals, they are saying something that is speciesist.
So let's say people want to reject speciesism. How do they do so?
So one way we can reject speciesism is by changing our language, because our usual language that we use is often very speciesist, and a lot of it normalizes violence towards non-humans. So we say things like, kill two birds with one stone, or there's more than one way to skin a cat. So we can change our language to say, cut two carrots with one knife, or there's more than one way to peel a potato.
Light two candles with one flame.
Cut two carrots with one knife.
And this rejects violence towards non-humans, but also shines a spotlight on these phrases that people use and don't even realize that they're normalizing discrimination and violence towards non-humans.
Yes. And people use the name of an animal as an insult very often. Like, for instance, one of the most popular is the word pig. You know, if someone's messy, they'll call them a pig, or if they eat too much, or they call police officers pigs. So, yeah, we really need to stop doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. So using an animal's name as a pejorative is definitely speciesist.
I respect you and pigs.
Don't use pig as an insult.
And, of course, an awesome way to reject speciesism is to go vegan.
Yeah, and I feel that being vegan isn't enough. We need to do activism too. Yeah.
Absolutely. Activism is important to challenge and disrupt the social norms we have, because right now, speciesism is the social norm. So even if you have friends who are using speciesist language or just saying things that are discriminatory against non-humans, speak up and challenge that, because that's how society changes.
Mm-hmm. By the way, speciesism, I know it's a kind of a tough word to say, but the way I approach it, like when saying it or writing it, just say species first and then add an ism onto the end, and then it's a little less confusing. You're breaking it up. Speciesism.
I mean, doing a whole presentation on it for talking and using the word for 45 minutes was... yeah, that would have been a good tip.
A couple of days ago, I was at Western University here in London, and my friend Amanda did some chalktivism about speciesism, and I was handing out leaflets, and there was a student, and he got mad at me. He was saying, what are you saying, that humans are on the same level as chickens? And it seemed a bit of a stretch for him to think of humans and other animals as being equals. But then when I said to him, okay, well, imagine if I was on campus here barbecuing dog meat. A lot of students here would be mad about that, and he agreed with me. Like, it might be a bit of a stretch for people to connect, humans with other animals, but at least you have to admit that we do treat pigs and dogs, for instance, very, very differently.
Yeah, I would agree with that. A lot of people understand the animal rights message when it's directed at certain species that we're used to treating with some forms of respect, like dogs or cats. But the speciesism message isn't even necessarily equating all animals as being exactly the same, or saying we have to treat all of them as the same. It's not discounting their interests simply because they are a different species. So the mere fact that an individual is born as a chicken shouldn't disqualify their pain from mattering.
I know in our society we do a lot of celebrity worship, and even in the animal rights movement, we hear of a certain celebrity going vegan, and we'll say, oh, look, so-and-so went vegan. Meanwhile, they're just plant-based.
Yeah, we are so desperate and wanting to associate our veganism with these celebrities that people love that we are willing to stretch the definition of the word to fit what they're doing. And I think we should be careful about how that undermines our message.
Thank you. I know in the early days of being vegan, my message in a lot of my songs, for instance, would just be, go vegan, go vegan. And then some people are saying, no, let's back off on that, and let's get people to become animal rights activists, to join the animal rights movement, and then by hanging out with like-minded people, they're going to make the connection, and they're going to end up going vegan as well.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting concept. It's one that I haven't tried and practiced too much, that is doing outreach, trying to create activists rather than create vegans. But I think that's in line with this idea of focusing on speciesism and saying, don't be a speciesist rather than saying go vegan, because once people let go of the prejudice of speciesism, or like you say, become involved in the movement, they see why they have to go vegan, and then they understand the reasons behind it.
I enjoyed your presentation today talking about reframing animal rights in our favor. Can you please talk about that?
Yeah, so I gave a presentation tonight about the framing we use in animal rights when we communicate our message. And kind of the takeaway from the presentation was that when we are doing vegan advocacy, veganism often frames the issue of animal rights as an issue of diet. And this frames it from a very human-centric perspective, because we are saying to other humans, hey, you need to change your diet to what we eat. And so the presentation was talking about tools that we can use to reframe the animal rights movement from the victim, non-human animal perspective, because people understand the ethics and the message that we're trying to speak about better when they are looking at it from the non-human animal perspective.
Okay, I see. To me, it's all about practicing the golden rule: treat others as I'd like to be treated. I wouldn't want someone to keep me in a cage and slit my throat. So yeah, it's important to put yourself into the shoes of another. And so with veganism, animal rights, I'm always looking at things, or trying to at least, looking at from the animal's perspective. For instance, bearing witness, watching the trucks go by, bringing the animals to the slaughterhouse. I'm imagining being in their situation. So I think it's really important for people to put themselves into another's place.
Absolutely. I mean, when I went vegan years ago, it was from watching the film Earthlings, which I'm sure is a very common reason we hear people go vegan. It's seeing the world, just a little glimpse, because obviously we never could experience what those animals go through, but seeing what it's like to be exploited, to be the means to someone else's ends. And our messaging should convey that. We should focus on the non-human animals, because they're obviously the best argument, and they're the reason we should go vegan.
Yes. And I feel so grateful to be part of this movement and to be vegan and an animal rights activist. It's like the start of a whole new life, and meeting so many like-minded people, compassionate people, people who care. And I'm sure you feel probably the same way, that it's a wonderful whole new life.
Yeah, it really is a whirlwind of a change from I feel like the steps going from non-vegan to vegan, it wasn't quite the process as going from a vegan to an activist, right? Like that was quite a change, but it is wonderful to meet so many people who are so committed to spreading a message about nonviolence, about not discriminating and oppressing others.
Yeah. And your shirt, I love it. I want to get a shirt like that too, and make more videos to like songs and that. I think art is a great way to reach people, and I'll make more songs about speciesism.
Yeah, I mean, I love your current songs about speciesism, so definitely more about speciesism is good. It's really important that we get the word out there, because even as a movement, we don't usually have speciesism at the forefront of our messaging. So encouraging people to think about how they discriminate against non-human animal interests is really important.
Yeah, thank you. And we're going to put a link in the YouTube description with a link to your presentation so people can watch.
Yeah, that would be great if you can look at the presentation there and hear more about framing. And if anyone is interested in contacting me or reaching out to me to talk about these things more, I'd love to share each other's perspective. You can find me on Twitter at Beyond Veganism.
Excellent. So reject speciesism, everybody.
Reject speciesism.
Respect every animal. Don't be speciesist. Never use the name of an animal as an insult for anyone.